Now, what is humanity's greatest problem? What do you think it is? Yeah, we are the problem. Well, let's take a look at what Augustine said here. Who do you believe? Check this quote out from Augustine, who lived about 400 AD, one of the most quoted church theologians of all time. Here's what he said. If you believe what you like in the Gospels and reject what you don't like, it is not the gospel you believe, but yourself. By the way, we could say that you could say that obviously here about the Bible. You could say it about our Constitution. You could say if you believe what you like in the Constitution and reject what you don't like, it's not the Constitution you believe, but yourself. Whatever you're talking about, right? Who do we believe? Do we believe ourselves or do we believe the gospel? Once we have evidence that the gospel is true, we ought to believe the gospel, right? Pascal said the same thing in a little bit different way. He said this: people almost invariably arrive at their beliefs not on the basis of proof, but on the basis of what they find attractive. Again, are people on a happiness quest or a truth quest? Most people are on a happiness quest. Whatever they find attractive, that's what they're going to go for. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the boastful pride of life. That's what we're going to go for. Hey, we all do that on occasion, don't we? And when you ask people, why do you believe that, and they can't give you an answer, you know why they can't give you an answer? Because it's not based on answers. It's based on what they like. They don't have reasons for it other than their own preferences. Now, if that's true of us, pity us, right? That's why Paul says, if Christ hasn't risen from the dead, your whole faith is in vain. In other words, we're saying this is really true. This really happened. Why believe it if it's not true? Here is the greatest problem. Romans chapter 1, we went through it last time we went through the book of Romans. The wrath of God is being revealed from heaven against all the godlessness and wickedness of men who do what? Suppress the truth by their wickedness. Since what may be known about God is plain to them, because God has made it plain to them, for since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, eternal power, and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that men are without excuse. Creation, God has given us evidence of Him through the effects that we call creation. The universe, life, those are all part of creation. Everything we see around us, part of creation. But the issue here is, our problem is that we suppress the truth. That's our greatest problem. Humanity's greatest problem is that we know the truth, but we don't like it, and so we suppress it. In fact, Jesus said this in another way in John chapter 3. He said, this is, of course, right after the famous passage, for God so loved the world. This is just a couple verses later. Here's what he says. For this is the verdict. Light has come into the world, but men love darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light so that it may be seen plainly that what he has done has been done through God. Men love darkness rather than light. That's our problem. We suppress the truth because we love darkness rather than light. We are truth seekers on one hand, but truth suppressors on the other hand. That's our problem. And we all know it in our hearts. We all do this. Paul, of course, in this context is talking about people who do it and ultimately lose all basic knowledge of God. By the time they get to the end of Romans 1, they're not only doing evil things, they are actually encouraging and applauding others to do evil things as well, which is basically what's going on in our culture today. In our culture today, we are now actually calling evil good and good evil. And again, whose fault is that? It's our fault. Basically, our greatest problem is the same problem that Jack Nicholson made apparent to us. Remember? When Tom Cruise said to him, I want the truth. And what did Nicholson say? Oh, come on, you can do better than that. You can't handle it. We can't handle the truth. You know why? Because the truth convicts us. That's why we can't handle the truth. That's why we suppress it. We suppress the truth because it convicts us. And when we suppress the truth, we're suppressing God. In fact, who suppresses the truth? Betrayers suppress the truth. Here is Caravaggio, who is a great painter about 400 or so years ago. He's painting This is Judas kissing Christ. And if you want to see great real-life kind of paintings of biblical scenes, just Google Caravaggio. In any event, atheists betray the truth when they suppress it. And Paul talks about this in Romans chapter 1. They suppress the truth in unrighteousness. Richard Dawkins, one of the most famous atheists in the world today, in a recent rally there in D.C., said, you know what, we ought to even stop arguing with people who believe in God. Don't argue with them at all. You know what we should do? We should just mock them. He doesn't even want to have an intellectual discussion. He just wants to mock us. To which Ravi Zacharias, a Christian apologist from Atlanta, originally from India, said, I agree with Richard Dawkins on that. You know what? In fact, I agree with it so much, I'm going to help him do it. I'm going to give him a plane ticket to Saudi Arabia, send him there, and have him start right there. You start mocking people who believe in God in Saudi Arabia and see how long how long you can last there. But think about that. And when you mentioned, when you go to college campuses, what kind of questions you get? You know what kind of questions I get? Sometimes a lot of hostile questions, and I'll stop and I'll ask them, if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? And on 3 occasions in the past 2 years, I've had people yell back at me, no! No. No, wait, you claim to be an atheist, a beacon of reason. Never mind that reason doesn't exist if atheism's true, because we're just molecules in motion, right? We're not really thinking, we're reacting, but let's leave that aside. You claim to be an atheist, a beacon of reason, and I ask you if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian? And you say no? Why are we even here? Why don't we just go have pizza? What's the point of this? Right? Why? Because they're not there to learn, they're there to make themselves feel better. To try and see if they can poke holes in the Christian worldview. They're there to try and suppress the truth. That's what they're there to do. So, atheists suppress the truth. Unfortunately, you know who else suppresses the truth? We do. We suppress the truth. I've had Christians, when I was an interim pastor, I've had people come up to me and say, God told me to leave my wife. Really? Yeah. Newsflash, if God told you to do something that's contrary to the Bible, it wasn't from God. Because the will of God is never contrary to the Word of God. The will of God is never contrary to the Word of God. But we suppress the truth. We suppress truth all the time.